The domed hall of the Celestini Council lay bathed in soft starlight, as if the cosmos itself had paused to observe what would transpire within. 12 towering spires, each carved from native alabaster and inlaid with veins of phosphorescent crystal, arched overhead in a perfect circle, their apexes almost touching the dome's translucent surface. Through it, nebulae and distant suns shimmered like jewels, casting an ethereal glow on the thousand-door, perhaps million eyes turned inward. At the heart of the chamber hovered the harmonium orb, a perfect sphere of living light, 90 centimeters in diameter, whose prismatic hues rippled in perpetual motion. To the uninitiated, it was a work of unparalleled beauty. To the Celestini Council, it was justice incarnate, the arbiter of every major decision since time immemorial. High Chancellor Fentress stood on the dais before the orb, his robes a flowing cascade of midnight blue silk threaded with silver. He had guided the council through treaties, declared wars, and brokered alliances across more than 24 systems. Yet tonight, his steady voice betrayed a hint of tension. Honored delegates, he began, projecting calm authority. For centuries, our civilization has upheld the principle that conquest is justified only when our survival depends on it. Yet never have we faced a world so pregnant with potential Earth. He paused, letting the name roll through the chamber. Like thunder, their warp drive prototypes may revolutionize interstellar travel. Their biosynth fields promise medical breakthroughs beyond our holostarch formulas. And their art, he broke off with a wry smile. Their art alone could inspire a renaissance to eclipse even the legendary Celestini lyricists. Festivals, a murmur of agreement, tinged with excitement, pulsed among the delegates. Many worlds had struggled with stagnation. The prospect of absorbing Earth's ingenuity gleamed like a promise of renewed vitality. Yet others, scarcer in number but no less fierce, exchanged worried glances. Ambassador Colin of the austere ice world Ryzen Prime leaned forward, his pale, crystalline features reflecting doubt. High Chancellor, he interjected, we indict Earth for its environmental chaos, its wars, and its hubris. Why not first propose a cultural exchange? We have, after all, established peaceful contact protocols with dozens of species. Fentress inclined his head. A valid point, Ambassador, but Earth's governments are fractured. Diplomatic overtures risk rejection or worse, giving them time to prepare defensive alliances with powers beyond our reach. We face a narrow window. The harmonium demands a decision now. From across the dais came a third voice, silky and resonant, Lady Valara of the Crystal City-State Orithia. My dear Colin, cultural exchange is but a polite euphemism for subterfuge. Their societies teeter on collapse. Unified resistance seems improbable. She offered a faint, inscrutable smile. Conquest would be swift, decisive, and frankly beneficial for them. Under our stewardship, they might flourish at last. A ripple of tension passed through the chamber. Valara's faction favored expansion at any cost. Believing Celestini guidance could cure Earth's ills, Colin's bloc counseled restraint, warning of unintended consequences. Others simply yearned for the spoils. Fentress lifted a slender ebony rod, and the harmonium orb shifted from calm lavender to a pale, quivering pink. This signaled that the vote would begin. Delegates across the galaxy, linked mentally through the harmonium's psionic network, prepared to cast their planetary ciphers. In those final moments before the first vote registered, Fentress addressed the council in a low voice, unheard by all but those nearest. Remember the covenant of remembrance. He whispered a phrase that made Lady Valara's smile briefly falter, and Ambassador Colin's eyes narrow. Unbeknownst to most, Fentress and a secret cabal known only as the Council of Remembrance had, centuries ago, embedded a safeguard within the orb. Once a vote was cast in favor of war, the decision could never be reversed. It was a necessary check on impulsive delegates, a stern reminder that the price of victory could be the destruction of one's own soul. Then the dawn of votes began. First came Orithia, 4, then Ryzen Prime, against, one by one. Planetary delegations affirmed or rejected. Across light years, the orb's color deepened with each pulse, sapphire for abstentions, crimson for against, and emerald for for. When the 63rd vote flickered in, the orb's hue froze, deep and radiant emerald. 9 worlds, had chosen to invade. 3 had opposed. 0 had abstained. A hush fell. It was a narrow margin, one that could plausibly have swung the other way. Yet the die was cast. Celestini fleets, dormant for decades, would rouse from their orbital berths. Weapons that had not tasted battle since the ravaging of Sishara would fire once more. Chancellor Fentress exhaled, feeling the weight of 1,000 generations settle upon his shoulders. "It is done," he said, voice steady but heavy. "The invasion shall commence at first light, in 7 of our standard hours. Prepare to mobilize." Across the chamber, Lady Valara allowed herself a thin smile, though her keen eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Ambassador Collins' jaw clenched. He had lost, but he would not forget. Somewhere deep in the orb, the hidden Council of Remembrance stirred, its members' consciousnesses entwined with every fiber of the Celestini psionic network. Moments later, the orb's surface fractured not with violence, but with revelation. Patterns of light coalesced into symbols older than Celestini history, interlocking triangles and spirals, seeming to rewrite themselves with every glance. Many delegates gasped. Some fell to their knees. For an instant, the council saw not the spoils of conquest, but a vision of cosmic scales, of balance and consequence far beyond their ken. High Chancellor Fentress held up his hand. "Order," he commanded. "The vision is intrinsic to the orb's design and inheritance of the remembrance. It warns us, no war is without cost." He let the words hang. And yet, the principle stands. "We shall strike Earth at dawn." The harmonium orb pulsed once, then returned to its pale lavender stillness. The remaining delegates exchanged uneasy glances. They had voted for conquest, but the cost moral, existential, perhaps even literal, lay hidden in those cryptic sigils. As the council adjourned, fleets flared to life in distant sectors. Celestini capitals buzzed with the clamor of industries, shifting from peacetime production to instruments of war. In the quiet sanctum of Fentress's private quarters, he regarded a fragment of the orb's last vision etched in starlight. Upon the polished floor, 3 shining triangles arranged like the beckoning path of a starship, a warning, a portent, or perhaps the echo of the Council of Remembrance's final hope that conscience might yet prevail. Outside, the galaxy held its breath. The die was cast, the path chosen, and in that vast, cold expanse, the light of a distant, blue planet beckoned, innocent and unaware of the storm headed its way. The harmonium's verdict might not be undone, but Fentress understood, with a weight nearly too heavy to bear, that destiny once set in light could still be shaped by the courage of those who dared to defy it. The first sign of the Celestini armada came not with the roar of engines, but as a ghostly ripple across Earth's orbital radar arrays. At precisely 17 UTC, every member of the United Coalition's Strategic Command Center saw the same thing. A vast, uniform field of energy signatures materializing just outside the heliopause. In the hushed control room at Norsec Station Alpha, Commander Lakshmi Rao tapped her console in disbelief. "Admiral, it's too many to count. They're not on any flight plan. They just appeared." Within minutes, space-based telescopes and civilian skywatch cameras worldwide were broadcasting the same eerie spectacle. Thousands of Celestini dreadnoughts, each nearly 5 kilometers long, arranged in a silent crescent around the sun. Panic rippled from Seoul to Sao Paulo. Streets emptied as people stared upward, mouths agape at the glimmering fleet. In Washington, D.C., the president's situation room crackled with activity. President Arya Chen stood before the panoramic holo-display, her dark hair pinned back, tightly, eyes steely despite the tension. Beside her, National Security Advisor Kai Morales spoke through gritted teeth. "Ma'am, our best analysts say these are Celestini K-class ships shielded by adaptive phase arrays. Conventional missile and laser salvos will bounce off like shots into mist." Chen nodded, voice calm but resolute. "Open all diplomatic channels. Issue a global broadcast. We offer peace. We offer dialogue, but we will not be unprepared. Mobilize every defense battery. We have orbital lasers, railguns, interceptor drones, and ready the planetary network to activate the Skynet jammers. They'll cloak certain calm frequencies. Maybe that can slow them down." As Earth's defenses hummed to life, The Celestini flagship Vigilant Resolve dropped out of hyperspace directly over the Pacific. From its bridge, Admiral Kethel surveyed the planet swarming below him on a holomap, his uniform, a perfect blend of metallic gray and deep black, bore the insignia of the Celestini Armada, 3 interlocking triangles, the symbol of inexorable progress. He inclined his head toward Lieutenant Commander Varus. Status, scanning, Admiral. Their orbital defenses are online, but their efficiency rating is suboptimal around 42%. Varus replied, they're throwing everything at our shields, but our phase screens hold. They have railguns and lasers, but no high-yield missiles. Kethel allowed himself a hint of a smile. They lack depth charges or flux warheads. Their technology is unrefined primitive. He turned to the main viewer as a wave of multicolored beams fizzled harmlessly. On Vigilant Resolve's hull, proceed with Step 1, orbital suppression. Across the expanse, clouds of Celestini pod drones descended toward Earth, each pod, no larger than a sports car, housed a cluster of anti-personnel nanobots and microsatellite cloaking devices. They droned downward, invisible to human eyes but deadly to organic life. Rouse screens lit up with warnings. Pods detected in every major city's airspace. We've got biowarfare canisters, she informed the president. If they breach containment, it's a thunderous crack cut her off. The first human orbital defense laser, a 5 gigajoule pulse, struck one of the dreadnoughts. Instead of a shattering explosion, the beam bent, refracted, then shrugged off harmlessly. On the Celestini bridge, a burst of surprisingly cordial laughter echoed. Tell the engineers their mirrors are dull, Kethel said. Reallocate power to the disruptor banks. Back on Earth, ratios of hope to fear shifted in the command room. Prepare the orbital elevator railgun, Defense Minister Nadia Petrov ordered. We'll fire every ton of tungsten we can get aloft. Streaks of light traced upward, then, like before, fizzled into nothingness as they hit the Celestini. Shields, the world's greatest works of engineering, amounted to dusting the sky. Yet despite the overwhelming power imbalance, humanity refused to yield. Underground bunkers spewed forth squads of recon teams, autonomous Mecha Jack's giant humanoid. Combat frames designed for urban conflict patrolled city streets. Their AI chipped away at Celestini stealth pods, capturing fragments and data samples. Citizens huddled in subways and shelters, watching grainy streams of tactical footage on rationed bandwidth. 3 hours into the assault, Admiral Kethel received a transmission unlike any other. An encrypted diplomatic channel opened without invitation. A single line of text scrolled onto the bridge's calm terminal, written in archaic Terran symbols that the Celestini AI had painstakingly reassembled into characters. We do not seek your world, we guard it. Kethel paused, hand hovering over the planetary lockdown command. Varus, localize the source, find the speaker. But before the lieutenant could respond, every sensor on the Vigilant Resolve flickered. Space itself seemed to warp around the dreadnought. The nearest star in view pulsed, its light bending into fractal patterns. Kethel stumbled, regaining his balance as alarms wailed. Report, the station's psionic link is jammed. Varus stammered. Long-range communications as well. It's like something is rewiring our perception. On Earth, in the heart of a New Delhi data hub, systems monitoring the celestial phenomenon registered incomprehensible readings. Gravity wells in miniature, seconds looping backward. Electromagnetic fields dancing to impossible rhythms. Scientists whispered that their world was being re-rated by some other power, something that saw no distinction between conqueror and conquered. Despite the disorientation, the Celestini fleets pressed onward. By dusk, ground landing parties elite, stormtroopers encased in exo-armor began breaching atmospheric defenses. They came down in shimmering pods across military bases, tech campuses, and agricultural centers. Their orders: secure research facilities, capture key scientists, and sterilize any resistance. Yet everywhere the troopers encountered only silence, no gunfire, no panicked civilians. Doors stood ajar, holoscreens showed paused news segments. Robotic cleaners in museums continued polishing artifacts. In Sao Paulo's quantum computing lab, the only living thing was a nervous lab cat that darted away into the shadows. Lieutenant Commander Mirza Coral leading a detachment in London raised her plasma carbine and advanced down an empty surmise. Her visor's thermal skin revealed no life signatures, but sensors picked up dozens of faint power sources, each one housed in towering crystalline structures that pierced the skyline. Each crystal pulsed like a heartbeat, etched with shifting runes that glowed in time with an inaudible resonance. Admiral Coral's voice crackled over open channel. We've landed. Status, 0 contacts. But we've discovered these monoliths. They're emitting subspace fluctuations and phased time signatures. I've never seen anything like it. Kethral's brow furrowed. Hold position. Secure. A perimeter. Probe those crystals, extract every piece of data. As they converged on the largest tower, Celestini tech priests set up arc lasers and psionic scanners. The crystals seemed to reject intrusion. Every probe shattered or returned feedback loops that overwhelmed the instruments. Outside, the alien runes drifted across the surface, morphing into shapes that suggested eyes watchful, inscrutable. On the vigilant resolve, Admiral Kethral watched the live feed. His confidence, once unshakable, wavered. They've evacuated the population, he muttered, voice low. This, he gestured to the monoliths, is no mere planet full of simple prey. It's a tomb, a trap, all across the globe. Celestini landing parties exchanged stunned reports. The monoliths stood guard like cosmic sentinels. Earth's forces had vanished, leaving only mystery and ruin. Even as the invasion machinery churned into overdrive, an unsettling realization took root. This was not conquest. It was an intrusion upon something far older and more formidable than any council of worlds. And somewhere in the silent corridors of those crystalline towers, a power stirred, ready to decide the fate of both conqueror and conquered. The Celestini invasion, once a fait accompli, had just begun to unravel. Night had fallen across Earth's beleaguered cities, yet beneath the veneer of darkness, the crystalline monoliths glowed with an inner light that defied comprehension. Each structure hundreds of meters tall, impossibly slender, and carved from a material neither wholly mineral nor organic, radiated waves of subspace energy that rippled through the fabric of reality itself. Where the Celestini invaders expected terrified survivors or pockets of resistance, they found instead only these silent sentinels, standing guard over empty streets and abandoned towers. A fractured Mindley Lieutenant Commander Mirza Coral crouched behind the shattered facade of London's Imperial Archives. Her exo-armor's HUD flickered under the onslaught of feedback from the largest nearby monolith. Over the comm link, her voice trembled. Admiral, these crystals, they're rewriting our sensor protocols. Thermal, psionic, electromagnetic, all scrambled. I can't tell if it's organic life or some rogue AI. Admiral Kethral listened in grim silence aboard the vigilant resolve, normally imperturbable. He now rubbed his temples as the bridge's instruments registered wild fluctuations. Keep your distance, he ordered. No ground teams until we understand their properties. Deploy the calibrators. Moments later, Nanite swarms, specially engineered Celestini bots designed to analyze unknown materials, deployed. From hovering drones, they drifted toward the monolith's surface, each one carrying microprobes and quantum stabilizers. Almost immediately, the crystalline wall absorbed them like droplets of water, converting them into static that surged back into the drone's circuitry. The drones collapsed in midair, their remains dissolving into motes of glittering dust. Impossible, whispered Dr. Varela, chief scientist of the Armada's research division, at Kethral's side. Material composition reads as non-Newtonian polyphase lattice, but energy signatures, they're older than our oldest cosmic microwave background records. Something pre-Celestini constructed these. Kethral's jaw tightened. Are they sentient? Varela's holo display bloomed with fractal glyphs. Their structure adapts to every scanning method. Every probe attempt alters the lattice pattern, as if it's learning. If it's not sentient, it's remarkably responsive. The Council's distress light years away. The Celestini Council's Grand Chamber shuddered as news of the monoliths reached them via delayed subspace relay. High Chancellor Fentress convened an emergency session. Delegates appeared one by one on the orb's psionic network, their faces drawn with disbelief. Ambassador Colin of Ryzen Prime spoke first. We have deployed the Vanguard legions to Earth's surface only to be repelled by her statues. This is no simple conquest. Lady Valara of Orithia replied through gritted teeth. Our scouts report entire divisions phased out of existence when they tried to board the monoliths. Lord Silas of Mirvatha, world famed for techno-archaeology, added, these crystals exhibit signs of reality modulation. Local gravity wells fluctuate. Time loops form within 10-meter radii. Fenris regarded the harmonium orb, its prismatic hues now marbled with jagged streaks of black. The covenant of remembrance did warn us, he admitted, voice low. The orb's final vision, those three interlocking triangles, it was not mere prophecy. It was a key. We have unlocked an ancient defense mechanism. An icy silence fell. The delegates had expected a swift victory, but instead found themselves entangled in forces beyond their control. The silent cities back on Earth. Dr. Jia Yun, a leading human xenolinguist, toiled in a high-security lab beneath the ruins of Shanghai's Quantum Institute, flanked by Celestini tech priests reluctant, but unable to leave. She pored over data harvested from the crystal's subspace broadcasts. For every signal decoded, another 10,000 fractalized into incoherent noise. Suddenly, her display cleared, forming rows of symbols unlike any known alphabet, tight spirals intertwining with straight lines, pulsing in sync with the crystal's glow. With trembling fingers, she traced a curved triangular pattern that matched the council's insignia. She read aloud, Vektanath Zarku, we are the keepers, hands clasped over her mouth. She turned to the Celestini researcher beside her. These are not mere guardians. They call themselves keepers. Keepers of what? I do not know. A warning carved in light in the vigilant resolve. The orb's psionic link broke as an anomaly swept through subspace. A single, pristine transmission pierced the bridge's chaos. All who stand against the keepers of the crystal veil shall be unmade, depart in peace, or become nothing. The voice was everywhere and nowhere clear as crystal, yet tinged with a resonance that defied dimensional boundaries. Officers froze, their neural links reverberating with that simple, horrifying sentence. Admiral Kethril seized the console, voice tight. Origin? The display read only coordinates untranslatable by Celestini systems, a locus outside known space. A point in a void beyond perception. Virella swiveled her chair. It's an echo, Admiral. A warning echo through the crystals. We didn't invade Earth. We trespassed upon their ward. The crystals awakened across continents. The monoliths reacted. In New York, the sentinel outside Central Park fractured, its surface blooming with additional glyphs. In Rio, one pulsed so fiercely that tremors rattled the statue of Christ the Redeemer. In Cairo, the Great Pyramid's shadow aligned precisely with a solitary crystal interior square, creating a beam of light that shot into the night sky, piercing the ozone layer. Governments, now cooperating out of sheer necessity, broadcast images of the phenomenon to the Celestini command. The universe's mightiest armada found itself fearful and helpless. Fenris's image flickered on the orb. Enough, he thundered. Recall the fleets. Withdraw from atmosphere. Stand down all ground forces. We must decide. Do we press on and risk total annihilation, or do we heed the warning of these keepers? Lady Valara's face twisted with defiance. We cannot allow a planet of primitives to hold us hostage. We have the right of conquest. Colin shook his head. Right? We barely comprehend their will. They possess powers that can erase entire starships from existence. This is not negotiation. This is blackmail by beings beyond reckoning. The orb flickered, its surface fissured with light and shadows. In that moment, the Council of Remembrance's long-dormant voices whispered through Fenris's mind. In your hubris, you awaken that which was never meant for conquest. A universe in Balancian, the bridge of the vigilant resolve. Admiral Kethril stared at the transmission coordinates, then at the swirling pattern of the monoliths. He thought of his home world, of the generations who revered the covenant of remembrance. He thought of President Chen's offer of peace, and of Dr. Jia Yun's lone cry in Shanghai. He tapped his console. All ships, stand down. Fall back to orbit at 5 clicks. Do not engage further. His officers looked stunned. Admiral, This is unprecedented. Our fleets are in position for planetary occupation. I know, Kethril replied, voice tired. But we've learned Earth is no prize, it's a fortress, a weapon. We cannot win this war. We must preserve our people. As the dreadnoughts disengaged their phase shields and drifted upward, the monoliths dimmed, their threat temporarily abated. But the memory of their power lingered like a stain upon the soul of the Celestini Armada. Aftermath and ominous common subterranean command centers and war rooms across Earth. Exhaustion gave way to cautious optimism. President Chen addressed, "The world at dawn. We know not the origins of these sentinels, but they have saved our planet from conquest. Let us honor them by healing our divisions." On the vigilant resolve, Admiral Kethril broadcast a message to the Council. His orders to withdraw had been overridden by High Chancellor Fentress, who, despite later rescinding the invasion mandate, insisted on a skeleton invasion force to maintain deterrence. Kethril, bound by duty, prepared to comply, though his conviction wavered more than ever. And on the Celestini homeworld, the Grand Chamber sat in stunned silence before the Harmonium Orb. Its fissures glowed with both light and warning. Delegates no longer argued over conquest or culture, they argued over survival. Some urged immediate peace treaties with humanity, acknowledging that the Keepers would brook no further aggression. Others, pride wounded, vowed to return in strength. But all were united by a single, terrible realization. In the vast tapestry of the cosmos, they were not masters but interlopers, structures of fragile flesh and ambition. Subject to the will of forces ancient beyond imagination, they had voted to invade Earth. What came next had shattered the Council's confidence and, in doing so, rewritten the course of interstellar history. The morning star dawned cold and steel gray over the Celestini homeworld of Arineth. In the sky, scattered remnants of the invasion fleets glowed like wayward fireflies, drifting toward distant orbits. Heavy cruisers limped back to orbital yards, their hulls scarred by time fracture blasts. Transports carried shaken troops, many of whom refused to speak of what they'd seen on Earth. Across the grand plazas and spired boulevards, citizens gathered in uneasy clusters, eyes turned skyward, awaiting the Council's decree. High embers of dissent within the shadowed recesses of the Council chamber. 12 delegates sat in an unaccustomed hush. Fentress stood before the Harmonium Orb, whose fractured surface pulsed with pale violet light and deep fissures of inky shadow. He raised a hand, but no one moved. After a long moment he spoke, voice taut, "We have been humbled. The Keepers of the Crystal Veil have delivered their judgment. Our fleets withdraw temporarily. But what remains of our honor?" Lady Valara's eyes burned with indignation. "We withdrew only because Admiral Kethril panicked. He abandoned the mission. We still outnumber them. We still possess the strength to conquer." From the opposing end of the days, Ambassador Colin of Risen Prime rose, his crystalline features nearly serene. "Strength without wisdom is folly. We trespassed on a power we neither understood nor respected. Our ships, our people, nearly erased. That is not the mark of victory." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The 3 worlds that had voted against invasion felt vindicated, but their voices no longer held the sway they once did. Tonight, the Council's unanimity over conquest had been replaced by splintered convictions, some urging retreat, others vowing vengeance. The orphan armada far above Arineth. In the orbital shipyards of Celestis Station, Admiral Kethril oversaw the patchwork repairs of battered dreadnoughts. His bridge crews recounted tales of entire squadrons swallowed by shimmering voids, of sensors reducing to static when gazing upon monolithic guardians. They had steered clear of Earth's atmosphere after the first withdrawal order, but not before witnessing the crystalline sentinels unmake entire legions. He walked the corridors, offering curt nods to tech priests and engineers. No one celebrated their narrow escape. Even the most stoic officers knew that, should another invasion order come, they would face an enemy that bent reality to its will. In a secluded briefing room, Kethril convened his senior staff. "High Chancellor demands we maintain a presence," he began, voice low. A skeleton force to deter Earth from, Lieutenant Commander Varys interrupted. "They do not need deterring. The Keepers will stop any further approach. The moment we glimpse a planetfall corridor, they'll dismantle us all." Kethral's eyes darkened. Then why risk our people on the council's whims? Orders are orders, but my duty is to preserve the Armada. The senators on Rineth heard only that the Armada was a ragged shadow of its former might, and that the alliance between worlds was fraying. 3. A fractured accordback on the Celestini throne. World envoys from Earth's card, but triumphant, arrived under a flag of truce. President Arya Chen's delegation came not by shuttle, but through trans-dimensional corridors opened by the Keeper's crystals. They materialized in the council's antechamber, eyes wary but determined. Chen spoke first, her voice steady. We seek no vengeance. Your invasion ended before it began. Let our peoples learn from this brush with ruin. Lady Valara bristled. Why should we accept terms dictated by primitives? You barely escaped extinction yourselves. Chen's gaze did not waver. We did not escape. We were spared. If your worlds pretend this was a mutual impasse, you risk provoking the Keepers. Final judgment, oblivion. On the days, Fenris studied the human leader. He saw pride tempered by humility and attitude no Celestini delegate had anticipated. He nodded slowly. Very well. We offer reparations, withdrawal of all military assets, dismantling of forward bases, and the establishment of a scientific exchange under neutral oversight. A murmur of relief rose among the Earth envoys. Ambassador Colin allowed himself a faint smile. Lady Valara seethed but fell silent. Even she perceived the council's precarious position. 4. The Council of Remembrances echoed late in the night, after the envoys had departed. Fenris returned alone to the harmonium orb's chamber. The fissures in its surface flickered with ghostly light. He laid a hand upon the sphere, and in the hush he heard the voices of the remembrance echo within his mind. Conquest is the child of illusion. True power lies in respect. He whispered. I have failed us all. The orb pulsed, and 3 triangles of light coalesced into a symbol, a promise of vigilance. It was neither condemnation nor absolution, but a reminder of the Covenant's ancient vow that the Celestini peoples would guard against arrogance. In that silent communion, Fenris resolved to reshape the council from within, not as conquerors, but as custodians of balance. Via New Genesis. Weeks later, Celestini ambassadors and Earth's representatives gathered beneath the skeletal remains of the largest monolith on Earth, now deactivated, its crystalline glow dimmed to a soft silver. Together, they erected a platform of cooperation, joint research into subspace geometry, cultural exchanges celebrating both species' arts, and a treaty guaranteeing each world's sovereignty under the Keeper's aegis. Scientists mapped the crystal lattice, learning to harness its stabilization techniques for warp drive safety. Artists translated the monolith's glyphs into poetry and melody, birthing a new form of interstellar art. And in the grand halls of Rineth, Celestini youths marveled at Earth's literature and music, no longer as spoils of war but as treasures, to be shared. Yet even amid this fragile harmony, the memory of what nearly was, of fleets poised to slaughter, and civilizations on the brink of erasure, lingered like a scar. The council's confidence had been shattered, but from that fracture shone a glimmer of humility and hope. As the twin suns set over Rineth's alabaster spires, High Chancellor Fenris addressed the reconstituted council. We came here seeking conquest, he proclaimed. We leave with understanding. Let this be our legacy, that even the greatest powers may stand humbled, yet rise wiser in their humility. And so the Celestini worlds, once united by ambition, found in their defeat a deeper unity anchored not in domination, but in the acknowledgement that some forces, like the Keepers of the Crystal Veil, exist to guard life itself, and that respect, not conquest, is the currency of true cosmic confidence.